This year we did 2 trips to Urinton, Nevada, so I combined them into one video. Landed in Reno, rented a Grand Cherokee, and it didn't take too long to start caching. The scenery is so different from what it is at home. And there's Mrs. Pirate, always fooling around. Now here's a prime example of a drive-up. It doesn't always happen like this, but it sure makes for a fast find. There was also a large selection of lizard-like creatures this May, but we didn't see hardly any at all when we came back in September. Can you imagine if these guys are really big? Yikes! Well, here's part of a snake. Didn't get to see very many of these this trip. So just imagine how big the butt had to be on the thing that made this big pile of poo. Carol kept going on and on. She wanted to see some wild horses. Well, she got to see some wild burros and some wild horses. The wild horses were skitterish, so we had to use full zoom on the camera. These guys are really curious, so it made them a lot more photogenic than the wild horses. Storms were looming all around us, but we managed to stay dry this trip. Those desert creatures, they sure blend in. Here we are, heading for the next geocache. Do you believe it? The GPS is pointing right at the base of that rainbow. There's Mrs. Pirate, just strolling through the desert. You know, we did get to see a lot of wild horses this trip. Our GPS is telling us there's a cache on that rock someplace. Yahoo! And there's Mrs. Pirate, scrambling up towards the cache, sometimes on all fours, but being mindful for snakes. Came across one area that had a bunch of this tar-like substance oozing out of the ground. Well, kind of made us feel like the Beverly Hillbillies. There sure is a lot of history in this desert, and it's just begging to be explored. It's nice to come across a stamp of somebody that you know. And that's us, the Kootenay Pirates, long way from home.
Almost to our goal of 4,000 caches in less than 10 days. Here we are, the desert of Nevada, hotter than hell.
For our last day, we decided to knock off caching early so we could enjoy an evening in downtown Reno. It seems every port we go to, Mrs. Pirate has another pirate by the hand, and to make it worse, she's always got a big smile on her face. Downtown Reno was loud with outdoor music. Here's a city climbing wall, something my brother Granitic Intrusions would like, not so much me. Carol is very much into preservation of desert animals. Here we are, heading home with a new mascot. 5 months later, it's time for our fall trip, and we're landing in Reno again. Because you know, there's just an endless supply of geocaches for us yet to find. This time we got a Jeep Compass, almost like Mrs. Pirate's back home. One of our crazy friends, Tycoon Auto, he got here before us again. It's nice to follow somebody like Tycoon Auto, because you know that pretty much all the caches are going to be there. The Nevada desert has a very harsh environment. Not much can survive these hot, dry mountains. Even the geocaches deteriorate in the sun. Today is our 25th wedding anniversary, and we plan to spend it finding caches along the shore of Lake Tahoe. We even got to go through a tunnel to get down to Lake Tahoe. Mrs. Pirate paused just long enough for me to get a picture of her with the lake in the background. We wanted to go for a hike, so after a bit of research, we found a trail that took us above the lake and presented us with many beautiful lake views. Here's me posing beside a stick I kind of think looks like a lizard. Along the hiking trail, a friendly muggle must have noticed how happy we looked and asked if she could take our picture. Thanks, friendly muggle. Gee, I keep taking pictures of big pine cones on my GPS. I guess I like pine cones. All these signs they had posted along the beach sure made us laugh. This was definitely a favorite part of our trip. And what an excellent way to celebrate 25 amazing years together. We rented this rustic little cabin on Lake Tahoe, and later that evening, we enjoyed a romantic sunset dinner cruise on an old paddle wheeler. I didn't get any sunset pictures because I was too busy eating at that time. I'm really surprised these pictures even turned out. It was almost dark by the time I got to take these. The next morning found us up early and we're heading back to the desert to find more geocaches. The Yerington Inn. They always make geocachers feel welcome. Even in the desert, you can pinstripe a vehicle. Any of the hiking we had to do was relatively short, but wow, it sure was hot out there. This was funny. Mrs. Parrot couldn't take another step without falling into another badger hole. This was our last day in the desert, and it snowed in the mountains overnight. Oddly enough, I pulled over to get the picture, and a policeman pulled over in behind me to see what we were doing. Time to head home, but we'll be back. Yerington still has a lot of caches to be found.